Welcome, fellow humans. Today I'm going to talk about how when I was very young, being extremely bad at everything helped me to form a growth mindset. So, when I was a very young child, I was tested and told that I was gifted, and for first grade I would be entering a special gifted program, which was great. Who doesn't want to hear that they're gifted? And I was actually a special case. Previously, this class, which was a first through third grade class, only accepted gifted kids who already knew how to read. And I absolutely could not read when I was in kindergarten. And they decided that they would try adding me to the class as an experiment to see if a kid who tested as gifted but couldn't read yet would do okay in the class. I also found out later, according to my mother, they thought that perhaps my reading development had been slowed down because I had vision problems and needed glasses. And I guess that's a decent idea. It's something that could happen in some situations, but nobody ever talked to me about it. If they had, I would have told them quite honestly that no, my reading problems had nothing to do with my vision. The fact that I needed glasses did not cause me any problems with reading. I just couldn't read because it was really confusing and difficult. And I would later learn that the people who were trying to teach me how to read weren't doing it very well. This was not their fault, because my kindergarten class didn't teach reading, and so the people who were trying to teach me how to read were my family members. And they were very smart people, they were very loving people, but they weren't people who had taken classes in early childhood education. They hadn't been taught how to teach reading to a child who was struggling with it. And they were all very, very bright people who learned to read fairly easily. So they didn't know how to help me when it wasn't easy for me. So I got to enter this gifted class as the only student in it who couldn't read. And that was a struggle. My teacher thought a lot about how to handle that, and she decided she wasn't going to change her routine just for me. The routine was the assignment was written up on the board for each grade, so there was a first grade, second grade, third grade assignment, and you were supposed to read it off the board and then get to work. And I couldn't. So every day I would have to ask the other kids in the class to help me out and tell me what I was supposed to be doing. But my teacher did also work with me one-on-one to teach me how to read. And I was exceptionally fortunate. She was a great teacher. She was very good at teaching how to read. So I did eventually catch up and learn to read, and things got better. But there was this long period of time in the class where I was the only kid who couldn't handle it. I was the only kid who couldn't do the work. And this might not have been that bad, except that I was also bad at everything else. For example, the other big thing about elementary school was math. And by math, I mean arithmetic. And I couldn't do that. I don't know why. I just kept getting the answers wrong. I understood the concept of addition and subtraction, and I knew how it was supposed to work, but when I actually did it, the numbers just didn't come out correctly. And I never figured out why. For over 3 years, I consistently had very unreliable results in arithmetic. I would get it right maybe about 25% of the time. Maybe I got a little better as I progressed, but I did terribly with basic arithmetic, and I understood all of the concepts. And then at some point, partway through fourth grade, the answers just started being right. I didn't learn anything different. I didn't have any epiphany. I didn't change how I was doing anything. They just went from being the wrong answers to being the right answers, and I've never fully understood it. I strongly suspect that my difficulty with both reading and arithmetic is that I have an undiagnosed dyslexia. And I didn't really view that as relevant to the math for a while, but then I spoke to a friend of mine who was actually a teacher, and she spoke about how dyslexia can actually cause problems with arithmetic. And so that is my best guess. And so there I was in school being bad at reading and arithmetic. And then there was writing, and my penmanship has always been terrible. This likely also connects. Not only am I just a klutzy person in general, but I didn't have good control over my hand muscles. I still don't. I can't always control where the pen goes when I'm writing by hand. A big problem that I had when I was a child, especially, was the verticals. Sometimes I'd want the line to go up, but it would go down, or vice versa. And I knew what I needed it to do, but my hand would just do something different. And so there's clearly something with my brain's attempt to control my hand that it just isn't very good at it. So my penmanship was really bad. And then there were some other subjects in school. Gym, which of course I was terrible at, and music class, which of course I was terrible at. I have a video about my amusia, so that wasn't very good. But there was one little bright spot, which was drawing. It's not that I was good at drawing, it's just that the standards of what is expected for a first grader are so low that I was fine. I was considered acceptable. Nobody had any complaints about my not particularly great drawings. I could draw a stick figure. Yay. But I wasn't good at anything, and I was bad at almost everything. And this was very difficult. I had a lot of issues and struggles. I was very stressed. I cheated on a bunch of my work, not even to try to get it to the point that it looked like I was doing well, but just so it looked like I was doing a little less terribly, so it was a little less embarrassing. But with all of this being terrible at everything, I had the fact that I was told I was gifted. And it was very, very difficult to reconcile this, because I'm bad at everything. This doesn't seem like a gift. I don't seem very smart at anything. And yet, nobody was telling me that I wasn't gifted. So I tried to figure out what could this mean. And I came to the conclusion that it must mean that if I put in a bunch of work, I can make more progress than an average person. And this is basically what's called a growth mindset. The idea that it's not about being naturally good at things, which I clearly was not, but it's about putting in the effort to develop abilities. And so while that was an incredibly stressful experience for me to have, I also feel that it helped me a great deal and shaped me a great deal, because I got two big things out of it. One, I got the idea that I was supposed to work very hard, but that if I put in a lot of effort, I could potentially really make progress and learn these things and get good at them someday. And that's a really, really valuable lesson, and something that would help me a great deal with some hard subjects later on in life that it would have been very easy to give up on. But I got a lot out of it. It felt very rewarding to put in the work and learn the material and actually be able to understand it. The second thing I got out of it is that a lot of my education was just downhill from there. There were a lot of times that were really hard going forward where I would think to myself, well, at least it's easier than first grade. Because that's such an unusual experience. Almost everybody I know was really good at things. They sailed right through elementary school. First grade was easy peasy. But I really struggled. I was very bad at it. And so I got to have that experience of I can do this really hard thing. I can be bad at something. I can get better. And I'm really glad that I got to have that so young because so many people do sail through things for a while and then when they hit their first wall, they have no idea how to handle it. And I got to learn that in first grade along with everything else. Reading has been great. I'm so glad I learned to read. It was so much work, but it has been so useful. But anyway, that's my story. And if you liked it, please click like. And if you'd like more similar content, then subscribe. If you know someone who might find it interesting, then share it. But most of all, if you have any questions, thoughts, similar experiences, drastically different experiences, I would love to read your comments. Thank you.